Oh, it's hard work, that. Right, today, because I haven't had much to do, it's been locked down, I've been on my annual leave, and we're going to be talking about Chicken Run. This is a real chicken named Big Mummer, but the chickens we're going to be talking about are made of plasticine, and I think you'd be surprised to know that Chicken Run can tell us a great deal about the world we live in and how to change it. I think the secrets to so much of life live in Chicken Run. So we're going to look, first of all, at oppression and exploitation, which is obviously exploitation. So we're going to have a look at how Chicken Run can tell you how to change your life and save society for the better. So obviously we see through the chickens here, they are trapped in a situation they don't want to be with. They are here against their will, and they're having eggs extracted from them, basically. So their sort of labour, what they do is they lay eggs. They don't get paid any eggs back. They don't get to keep the eggs. And it all goes towards the farmer and Mrs. Tweedy in this case. So the foundations are there. Now what this goes to show is, first of all, we're here against our will in capitalism or in Chicken Run. They're very much like the working class. Much like the working class, we've had a few too many Mackeys and we can't get through the fence. This can happen to any of us. But what we see here as well is the ways which we are made to not see our own oppression, or ways in which when we do resist, we're not organised enough to win. So we can see this quite clearly with what would be known as a repressive state apparatus. So we've got Mr. Tweedy there, we've got his scary looking dogs, and obviously this is like in real life, that would be the police, the army, and it doesn't matter if you've got a gnome about. They're gonna have a go at you. The big dog's gonna try and bite your head off, or a police is gonna knock your head down like in the miners' strike or something. And oh, there goes the gnome. Noam Chomsky. He's a bit of a lefty, so you can look him up, but he didn't stand a chance. So that's a repressive apparatus there. So here's a little clip of the repressive state apparatus in action and its function. Nice slippers.
Mr. Tweedy, what is that chicken doing outside the fence?
Oh, I don't know, love.
Just deal with it now.
I'll teach you to make a fool out of me. Now let that be a lesson to the lot of you. No chicken escapes from Tweedy's farm.
So Chicken Run, a very advanced piece of communist propaganda, if you ask me. So you got the repressive state apparatus there, the things which grind us down quite obviously, like the police, etc. Now, there's another element to it, so that's an ideological state apparatus, which old Louis Althusser, some French bloke, would tell you about. What that is, that's like advertising, that's films which send you a pro-capitalist or pro-chicken farm message, and things which sort of mollify us and stop us from rising up. So an example that happens later in Chicken Run is they're all given grain and fattened up to accept they're going into the big chicken pie machine, which we'll see later, but that's a bribery to the chickens and keeps them sedate when in fact they should be really cross. And the chickens do get cross later, don't you worry. Plucky little creatures. And there's Louis Althusser with a pipe there. Having a good puff.
Don't you see what's happening? They're fattening us up.
So there you go. They're getting fattened up. That was just to illustrate the point there. I've been up for a long time. Now surplus value. That's a Marxist term. Basically, that's your labour, which goes to your capitalist class boss. So you end up working for so long in the day, and at a certain point, it's all going into profit.
You are going to be a pie.
I don't want to be a pie.
And ultimately, Aren't we all pies? Isn't that what society's all about? So the workers are very much for chickens. They're producing eggs or surplus value, and you've got the capitalist Mrs. Tweedy who's profiting from the eggs. So obviously she's selling the eggs on, taking all the eggs away. Now this is a very interesting scene here. This is the a bit of labour discipline for the chickens going on. So they all have to line up, and they're judged on their productivity. So much like you've got your targets and things at work, these chickens have a target of how many eggs can they get. So they're only valued. They're not valued for being lovely big chickens. Not valued for being a chicken. Look, that chicken's got a hat on, like incredible, having little pearls and all of that. Oh, they're very individual chickens, these chickens, but they are expected to lay eggs, and that is it. So we get a case of what you call alienation, basically. They're only valued for their eggs, much like when you're a worker, you're only valued for your work. And we see this in all sorts of workplaces, but have a look at this. She's got her list there, and see how little worth she doesn't care about these bloody chickens, does she? Outrageous, absolutely outrageous. But surplus value is effectively these eggs which have been extracted from them. So that's exploitation, because they're doing this work just to have it all taken away from them, and lovely eggs. And I'll tell you what, the chickens do like eggs, but it's best not to leave them in the nest, because they do just peck at them, from my experience. But these chickens seem quite bright, like that one's got glasses on. So there you go, she's got a little list there, and is terrifying the chickens into labour discipline. So if you've got managers or you get inspections at work and they're checking your targets, this is pretty much what goes on. They're having a look and they're saying, oh, I don't know, how many of these sales targets have you hit? And if you're unlucky, you're number 282. See, just numbers. We're not numbers. We're chickens. Well, we're people, but these are chickens. And as you can see, once you're done being productive for the capitalist class, that is it. Look, dreadful. Absolutely dreadful. Chicken. It's basically how we treat people, isn't it? Except we've got pensions and that, but they've been all fought for by trade union movement and by chickens. But as you can see, once they lose their productive capacity, that's it. You get in the chop, you're no use, you're ground out and spat out. So we're only worth profit, and I think we're worth more than profit, aren't we, fellow chickens? And yeah, it's quite very sad seeing this. I should have put a little warning on this video, but there you go. And that's it. You get the chop. You're getting sacked because you're not productive enough. Very, very tragic. Now, this is an interesting scene as well. I think this displays what we call alienation under capitalism. So if you work a lot, do you ever feel like you're just nothing more than your job, but it's just all we're about is consuming goods and keeping the economy going and doing our work to keep people spending money. And so you just work for your boss to make profits, and then you get back, you spend stuff, and you're exhausted, you haven't got any potential to be yourself. Well, I think that's what Chicken Run is quite obviously trying to say here. We're all part of the machine. We're all ground into pies. We all become commodities, if you like. So commodity like a bit of Daz or a vacuum cleaner or something on the side. We become little items as well, which the capitalist class buy and sell. So we are just reduced from our humanity or chickenness. Reduced from being a lovely chicken. Mel Gibson plays this chicken. Less said about that, the better, really. But there he is. And they're ground down by the machine. They're becoming... Look at that. Look at that. All the cogs and wheels, very much... You know, there's a thing called Fordism, which people have a look at, which is basically old factory work. And all you did was one repetitive task, which these days is now done by machines. And these little bits of the factory were all broken up, so you became nothing more than that one little repetitive task you did. And I think you see that in service jobs, customer service jobs and all sorts, where all you are is the job, and you're not allowed any sort of... That becomes your identity, and that's what's, I think, metaphorically happening to these chickens. In a way, capitalism is turning us all into pies, and, you know, not necessarily a nice pie either. Like, I think these pies look pretty decent, but they're more like pucker pies or something, aren't they? They're not like a proper, not like a nice pie you get at the pub and stuff. Well, actually, it's quite good. Actually, there's quite a lot of veg in that. I'll take that back. But you wouldn't want, you want to pluck that chicken, wouldn't you? You want the chicken with all like feathers and stuff. But I think we see that we do resist being completely consumed by capital. It's not the end of the world. We do fight back, and as you can see, they're breaking the machine. Sometimes the only way to not be consumed by the machine is to break it. So we need some sort of revolutionary activity of breaking our patterns to not be consumed by the fires of capitalism. We don't want to be lost, stripped of all our individuality. We don't want to be alienated from our profits, from our labour, from our eggs. So if you're at work, you don't want your eggs taken away from you. You don't want to be turned into a pie. And I think that's what Karl Marx initially said in Das Kapital. In fact, it's pretty much summed it up. There's a couple extra elements here, so we're going to get beyond Karl Marx's Das Kapital. I'd recommend reading Das Kapital if you haven't. It's a long book, so you can just settle for watching Chicken Run. That's what I did. And that's a nice Indiana Jones reference there. But the people in Chicken Run, they're clearly a bunch of Marxists. Look at it. It's all there. It's all there. And as you can see there, the machine stops when a bit of individuality and a bit of resistance is made. The odds may seem insurmountable, but we can be a spanner in the works. That's what I see. That I've only just noticed that. And that's it. Sometimes the gravy pressure gets too high. Capitalism collapses, much like 2008 banking crisis. That was the gravy getting to too high a level thanks to a lot of dodgy banking activities. But we are more than cogs in a machine. We're more than chickens in a big pie. And that is really... I want to have a real, uplifting message from this video. And obviously this has been done in modern times. Charlie Chaplin, quite famous. That's a very good image of alienation, where we're just lost in the machine there. Now, class consciousness. This is when we start to realise that we're all being turned into pies and our eggs are all being taken. So Gramsci would talk about organic intellectuals. Now these are intellectuals that come from the workers. So Ginger there is a good example. So she is a chicken. She's a normal chicken. She's not gone to university. She's not come from the outside. She has learned from her experiences in the struggle against having her eggs taken, in the struggle for escaping. She has come to her own conclusions and lessons. And now she is trying to radicalise the other chickens. So that's quite fantastic, isn't it? But there's still something missing, but she is trying her best, and she is going against class consciousness. Now, there's fantastic books. There's The Ragged Trouser Philanthropist, which has a worker there trying to explain capitalism to his fellow workers, and he's trying to get them to go beyond and actually fight back against this system, because sometimes we don't realise what we're fighting against. And obviously she has this socialist vision of a land beyond capitalism, of a new society, something utopian and beautiful. And I think it's important that we can all picture something beyond. So that's paradise there. It's a very utopian. I think I think this film's very heavy-handed on its Marxism, and one of the chickens, that chicken on the left there, looks like Trotsky with the glasses. So it's all there. Leon Trotsky, the Russian revolutionary figure. You can look him up. Great guy in general. But as you can see here, they're not happy. They've been pushed too far. They're scared about their positions. And again, that's the way capitalism keeps us in our place. We are scared to fight back. We are scared of losing. But as Karl Marx said, we have nothing to lose at our chains. And the chickens, really, they don't even have chains. So they've got feathers that get plucked and stuff. But chickens don't have much to lose. They're just going to get the chop at the end of the day, aren't they? They'll finish working. They'll stop being able to lay eggs. But it's very sad. So you see, all hope is lost. So she needs something a little bit extra. Something to help her push to see a new vision of how to get to this society. So we all get to these moments of despair. And as a bit of a socialist myself, I've been in this scenario. But there is always hope. But sometimes we need a little miracle or something that helps us see the world just a little bit differently. And I think this is the function of this scene, where Mel Gibson's chicken, Rocky, is it Rocky the Rooster? He ends up coming in, and obviously that's a miraculous thing. Chickens can't fly, they're flightless birds, they can sort of jump onto little things. But, they're not proper, they're not flying that much. And there he goes. lands into life, bit of pizzazz, and although he does get crushed by that thing, it's significant. Like, reality has changed, and we can see the idea of flying over the fence. Another world is possible. Be realistic, demand the impossible. We don't have to live in chicken coops laying eggs. What we can do is we can fight back, we can escape, and we can attain a higher sense of reality, a higher sense of struggle, and a higher sense of a more beautiful, wonderful society beyond being nothing but the products we make. And Chicken Run is absolutely brilliant for that. Now, the catch is, you get this divine event from the outside, and it seems fantastic, but I think this is what you'd call a false consciousness, if you like. This is a little event where the workers or chickens put all their faith, put all their eggs in one basket into the wrong thing. So something like, we've had Jeremy Corbyn and Bernie Sanders in Britain, where people, or general right populists as well, people like Donald Trump, where people think they're going to improve their lives, but they don't. But sometimes, even though we feel conned, sometimes just being able to reach for the stars and see we can fly over the fence, it awakens something, it awakens a new genius in us, and it allows us to broaden our horizons. So even in a defeat, even in discovering an illusion, we can discover a way of rising above our exploitation, of becoming something far grander. And even at times of despair, sometimes those times of hopelessness are where the most courage is needed. And don't worry, he comes back in the end, it's alright. And it's and sometimes the revolutions don't go straight forward. Lenin had a thing about climbing a mountain, going the wrong way, and you had to go down the mountain again and take a more difficult and slow path up of the mountain. So these things all happen. Now, we're getting into the revolution here, a world beyond the fence. So this is when all that struggle, all that planning, all that misery is converted into an act of defiance.
Why, you thieving little buggers?
What's the plan? Attack!
Nice one, bad.
Chickens are revolting!
Finally, something we agree on.
Under the hut. What have we done? This is it, everyone. We're escaping.
Oh, no. Now. But Ginger, she's not ready.
Listen, we'll either die free chickens or die trying.
Are those the only choices?
Let's do it.
Now that's a really brilliant scene, that. So that is Ginger there at a moment where I think the moments before these revolutions and big social changes or struggles are very scary moments. And there was that moment of, oh shit, what have we done? Said by Babs the chicken there. And I think that is very true of revolutions. At some point, you end up pushed beyond a point and there's no going back. And I think you see this decisiveness of a figure like Lenin in the Russian Revolution, who knew to seize the opportunity in 1917 to seize power for the Bolshevik communist forces and for the workers to decisively take power. And I think that's exactly what this film's getting at. And that's what Ginger managed to do. Now, that's very powerful stuff, and I think that's something we all have to face in moments of struggle against capitalism. Why are we going to go to that place beyond? Now, what we see here as well is just the genius of the chickens or the workers who can make this fantastic contraption and create their own road to freedom, because it's not going to come from anywhere else. That road to freedom has to be born from us, from the working class themselves. So you can compare this to the Soviets and the new democratic, wonderful institutions the Russians made. Of course, as we can see here, there will be struggle. The capitalist class, or Mrs. Tweedy, will keep fighting on in a violent civil war and will do everything in their power to stop the workers getting freedom. So that's why you need to lob eggs at them. or commit to a long and difficult struggle. And it can at times seem hopeless. It can seem like it wasn't worth it. It can seem like all is lost. And there is a great tragedy to that. But there is always hope in the end. And hope is a very powerful weapon. And sometimes we need a complete break with capitalism. And we need to throw our oppressors into probably a huge vat of gravy, or at very least into the dustbin of history. And I think that's what this film is absolutely symbolising there. So you've seen the revolution in action, and quite incredible. But not only that, again, we're getting the motif of the machine, of the capitalism has just made its own grave diggers, and it has now destroyed itself. We must destroy the machine. We must destroy the mode of production and oppression we live in. We need a complete, clean start. It's very revolutionary. And then, of course, we've got the destruction of capitalism in the background, and we've got the capitalists themselves humiliated and powerless. Isn't that great? Gravy everywhere. Perhaps all the surplus value, but now means absolutely nothing. They've taken all that, but now we've changed the rules. And, probably the end of her, isn't it? Like, that's, nasty, that door. Big old door. And everyone has a great time. There's that sort of period after the revolution. But the day after the revolution, because you party on the day of a revolution, you've had this wonderful overthrow of tyranny, and you've got the divine event and the organic work having a snog. I wouldn't really read anything into that. I haven't really thought about that, to be honest. Bit strange. But what's important is, what is that society like that you've created? Have you created something worth going into? Have you created an egalitarian society where there's no more oppression, where there's no more targets, no more rubbish? And it looks like they have, haven't it? They're talking about their past struggles. It's lovely and sunny, and they're living like good free-range chickens. They're living in that sort of utopian kind of freedom. And there you are, we're having the advancement of science. The chickens weren't able to develop their science as much, and I think we see that under capitalism. You want to develop certain things in science to do with climate change and essentials, but it's blocked by profit-driving interests, and it is a fetter on our ability to move to a new mode of production. So isn't that fantastic? That's how we should all live. We should all be playing tennis and stuff, and living in the greens. So there you go, Chicken Run, a communist vision of the future. And quite a wonderful one. And there's the rats. There's probably something I could say. They're sort of like small businesses without a tag along, or something like that. But they're a good laugh, the rats, anyway. And I think that'll do.